On le surnomme le cannibale du Milwaukee, ce qui est justifié. Jeffrey Dahmer prenait un plaisir sadique à torturer, puis à manger ses victimes.
I injected another syringe full of that dilute hydrochloric acid, and that's what killed him. I wasn't trying to kill him, but that's what happened.
Enfant dans les années 60, Dahmer se réfugie dans son monde. Son jeu préféré est de tuer de petits animaux, de leur retirer la peau et de nettoyer les os à l'acide.
That's the sort of thing that should raise a flag of concern when we have that sort of behavior, or prolonged torturing of any animal, enjoying that. That's the sadistic element that is of concern, because you're only a step away. Animals can show fear, they can cry, they can scream.
Adolescent, Dahmer se met à boire. Il devient lunatique, introverti, asocial. Peu après la séparation de ses parents en 1978, il frappe pour la première fois. Il prend un adolescent de 19 ans en autostop et a des rapports avec lui. Puis, il lui fracasse le crâne avec un pied de biche. Dahmer traîne ensuite le corps dans un vide sanitaire, le démembre et stocke les morceaux dans des sacs en plastique.
Some of it had to do with loneliness. He didn't want these people to leave, so he killed them to keep them around. I think that was sort of unique, perhaps, to Dahmer.
Dahmer commence alors à hanter les bars gays de Milwaukee et de Chicago à la recherche de victimes. Ce sont toujours des hommes jeunes, noirs pour la plupart.
Somehow the violence and sexuality got paired. Violence itself becomes eroticized, and that becomes the exciting part of it.
Plus tard, Dahmer confiera naïvement ses méthodes dans une déposition à l'avocat Robert Slattery. C'est une vidéo inédite à la télévision.
He would make offers to lure young men by offering them money.
Sometimes, yes.
And what you'd offer them money for is for the taking of pictures.
Occasionally.
You'd also offer them drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Your answer is yes?
Right.
And you didn't necessarily propose a sexual encounter, but you hoped that it would lead in that direction.
Right.
The other procedure that you utilized was to drill holes through the bone, through the skull of your victims?
Yes.
What did you inject into the hole?
Sometimes hot water, sometimes a weak acid solution.
What sort of acid?
Hydrochloric.
Now, what was the purpose of that drilling technique now?
To put the person in a sort of zombie-like state. I didn't know exactly what it would do, but I was experimenting, if you will.
What do you mean when you say a zombie-like state? What do you
state where he would be willing to just follow my orders and not want to leave.
La série de meurtres de Dahmer s'étale sur 13 ans. Elle se termine en juillet 1992, toujours à Milwaukee. Dahmer menotte une nouvelle victime dans son appartement. Mais l'homme de 32 ans parvient à s'échapper. Il conduit la police chez Dahmer. Ils y trouvent les restes de 13 cadavres, dont des têtes humaines dans le réfrigérateur.
He would murder them and decompose them, he cannibalized them. There were photos of some of the most ghastly things that you could ever imagine happening to a human being that Dahmer did to his victims.
En février 1992, Jeffrey Dahmer, 31 ans, est reconnu coupable de 15 meurtres. À l'époque, on s'arrache déjà cette étrange histoire.
Everybody was trying to do a Dahmer thing, you know, it was sick, disgusting, exploited for money. Book writers, movie makers. It's okay for them to make money, but God forbid that the families of the victims should get anything for what happened to them.
Jacobson lance un procès civil contre Dahmer. Le juge attribue aux familles une somme totale de 120 millions de dollars pour préjudices moraux. Mais d'où vient cet argent? Sûrement pas de la poche de Dahmer.
We had actually, in LA, arranged with some writers, and how we were going to do it was that Jeffrey Dahmer would be interviewed face-to-face and filmed. And basically, for his first-person story rights, you know, Jeffrey, how'd you get to be such a sick individual that did so many demented, disgusting things with your victims? You know, that story was worth $1 million.
Dahmer refuse de parler. Jacobson a alors une autre idée. Il est difficile d'y croire.
We knew that the 311 items that were confiscated by the police from Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment, which included the vat that he used to boil down his victims, the hypodermic needle he used to lobotomize his victims, the cutting utensils he used to cut up his victims, the acids he used, and the lava lamp, everything else that was in that apartment would have a value.
Le même juge décrète que les familles des victimes ont le droit de saisir la propriété personnelle de Dahmer.
So that was our plan. We were going to have a Jeffrey Dahmer auction and sell off to the highest bidder all of Jeffrey Dahmer's assets.
Plus troublant encore, les chaînes de télé du monde entier se bousculent pour filmer les enchères en exclusivité. Mais l'idée est jugée révoltante, surtout à Milwaukee.
What ultimately happened there was that Joe Zober, who is a philanthropist, wealthy property owner in Milwaukee, did not want to see something like that happen. He did not want a Jeffrey Dahmer auction. He thought it would be terrible for the world, terrible for Milwaukee. He stepped up and ended up, through negotiations, paid us $430,000, which then was divided up amongst all of the victim families. My fee, of course, I gave to charity, and that's how that ended.
Oui, mais la collection morbide est toujours là. Joe Zober finira par faire détruire les biens de Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer mourra en prison, battu à mort par l'un de ses co-détenus. Les criminologues s'accordent sur le fait que Dahmer a le profil de la plupart des tueurs en série, un homme blanc de moins de 35 ans. Eileen Wuornos ne correspond pas à ce profil, du moins en apparence. Mais en vérité, cette femme surnommée la putain au pistolet et la faucheuse des autoroutes n'était pas différente des hommes.
There is a common link in these mystery murders. All 8 were white, middle-aged men. They had all been robbed, their vehicles stolen and abandoned, and they had been shot with a small caliber gun and their bodies dumped in rural areas similar to this one.
Black widows, they murder their husbands for the money or what have you. Nursing home murders. You've got angels of mercy killings in hospitals. But she, to the best of my knowledge, was the only serial sexual killer who was a female. And that makes her very interesting.
Tout comme Jeffrey Dahmer, Eileen Wuornos vient d'une famille à problème. Son père, Leo Wuornos, est en prison pour le viol d'une fillette. Il se pendra dans sa cellule. Lorsqu'Eileen a à peine 4 ans, sa mère l'abandonne chez des proches.
Eileen Wuornos had a very disturbed childhood. She had severe mental illness. She also had a motive of rage and revenge against the people that she felt had destroyed her as a young child.
À 14 ans, Eileen est enceinte.
She hid her pregnancy for 6 months. Finally, after 6 months, she had to disclose her pregnancy, at which time she was immediately sent to a home for unwed mothers.
Elle fait adopter l'enfant, puis prend la route.
She wound up being a prostitute, in which prostitutes are almost by definition abused by the men around them. So after this long period of abuse, she starts killing people.
I saw him coming toward me, and then I was going to turn to look at him, and before I even got a chance to turn to look at him, he whipped a cord around my neck. He said, "You're going to do everything I tell you to do, and if you don't, I'll kill you right now."
Eileen tue l'homme, elle tuera à nouveau. Toutes ses victimes sont des clients.
She apparently gets some kind of a sexual thrill out of the actual killing of these guys. So then, and I think that what this is a kind of just such a reversal of roles.
En 1989 et 1990, Wuornos abat 6 hommes en Floride. La police la retrouve et l'arrête en janvier 1991. Wuornos avoue les 6 meurtres. En 1993, elle est condamnée à mort. 9 ans plus tard, elle est exécutée par injection dans une prison en Floride. Elle a 46 ans. Entre-temps, on écrit des livres et on tourne des films télé. Puis, en 2003, l'histoire d'Aileen Wuornos arrive au cinéma avec Monster, encensé par la critique comme par le public.
She wasn't glamorized in that movie. She was pretty well portrayed as just pathetic.
Charlize Theron remportera un Oscar pour sa fascinante interprétation de Wuornos.
She was a flawed human, like all of us, and I'm a true believer that, we all make certain choices in our life, and she made some really bad choices in her life, but she also came from a very unfortunate place.
Nous savons tous que les tueurs en série sont capables des crimes les plus inconcevables. Mais une question subsiste. Pourquoi ce besoin de tuer?
Most of them are killing for power or out of rage. They want to have control. Yes, there probably is a sexual element, but that element is part of having absolute control over somebody else.
There's something missing there that this lack of compassion and empathy and concern for others they're very devoid of this.
Many serial killers enjoy killing. I think it was Ted Bundy who said that when he was strangling a victim or killing a victim, and he saw the life go out of the eyes, that was the greatest moment. He felt like God.
They're completely disconnected from humanity in general. And that's very difficult for people to understand because as human beings, we look at people and say, how could you possibly do something like that? How could you make that person suffer? How could you eat them? How could you dismember them? But to the serial murderer, there's absolutely nothing of any meaning to the act that they do.
There is an ability to kill in the most ordinary people. Sometimes it goes back to the idea that we're sort of flipping back into the Stone Age, that this is the old killer instinct that is buried in the human soul as a kind of survival mechanism that propels us to kill, or at least allows us to kill.
Le débat fait rage. Les tueurs en série sont-ils un produit de leur environnement ou sont-ils nés pour tuer?
There may be a genetic predisposition to violence, and then if somebody has that and they're brought up in an abusive environment, then we're almost guaranteed to create a monster. But we also know that a lot of people have been brought up in abusive environments and they do not become serial killers and serial rapists or violent offenders. So it isn't just nature alone, it isn't just nurture alone, it's quite often some not well understood nature-nurture tango that create violent offenders.
Something goes wrong in prenatal life. This is not passed down in families. This is not something that occurs in generations. It's not like inheriting, the blue eyes from your family. This is something that doesn't express itself until you're in your early teens, when brain chemistry, when brain hormones, and brain structure are all changing. Because this is the age at which the first murder occurs for the serial killer. The problem with the serial murderer is that they don't really have a personality. They don't have anything that you can diagnose. They are such chameleons that they become whatever their environment wants them to become. And they're tremendous actors.